The term hidden gem is oftentimes very overused. While I think there's some great games out there, I think too many people use the term hidden gem to describe games that they just think are very niche or don't have a lot of eyes on them. But few games I would really put up there as being just super great examples of video games that beat the odds, that deserve just as much praise as a lot of the popular titles. But one such game I do hold to that regard is Enslaved. Odyssey to the West. Enslaved was a game developed by Ninja Theory. Many of you may know them for their most recent game Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which at some point I'd like to cover. They were also more famously known for their 2013 Devil May Cry reboot. Enslaved Odyssey to the West is a game you might have heard of but never played. It's considered by many to be a hidden gem of the 7th generation of consoles, myself included. Honestly, I remember being pretty stoked to play this game, so much so I pre-ordered it from GameStop. It certainly didn't disappoint. I've long held this game as a hidden gem among the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and recently I've had an itch to revisit it once more and see how it holds up. If you find this video useful, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell notification, and join me on this post-apocalyptic adventure as we make our journey to the West in our Enslaved Odyssey to the West retrospective. Ninja Theory first made their way into the eyes of gamers with the PlayStation 3 launch title Heavenly Sword. You know, the game everybody knows that Andy Serkis, guy who played Golem in Lord of the Rings, mocapped in. Ninja Theory was initially working on a sequel to Heavenly Sword, but canned the project due to contractual obligations. Basically, Sony owned the rights to the game and the technology used to create it. Ninja Theory also made no money from the sales. Founder of Ninja Theory, Tahim Antonitis, said in an interview with Game Informer, "It's difficult. Heavenly Sword came out pretty early on in the PlayStation 3's life, and we sold I think 1.5 million copies, and it's not enough as an independent studio to break even. The publisher potentially breaks even at that point, but the developers don't." He went on to elaborate further as to why they couldn't make a sequel to Heavenly Sword. "I don't know if Sony made any money on Heavenly Sword, but we did. But we couldn't do Heavenly Sword 2 as a multi-platform because it's owned by Sony. The tech we developed for that game was also owned by Sony. Since they couldn't make it multi-platform and did not make any money off of Heavenly Sword, they sought another publisher eager to take on their next project. This project was Enslaved: Odyssey to the West." Initially, Ninja Theory proposed Enslaved as a CGI film, but couldn't find any studios interested in doing so. They spent 3 months crafting a marketing pitch and showed off multiple publishers before they landed on Bandai Namco as the publisher, and development of Enslaved Odyssey to the West began. It was decided early on that the game would be a futuristic take on the Chinese epic Journey to the West, which Antonitis was reading at the time. Andy Serkis would once again join, this time playing the role of the main character, Monkey, rather than the bad guy. Lindsay Shaw, who most of you will know from Ned's Declassified if you grew up in the early 2000s and 90s, would be chosen to play the role of Tripitaka. Serkis and Shaw weren't the only Hollywood talent who would join them, though. Alex Garland, who is probably most famous for screenwriting the movie 28 Days Later, co-wrote the script alongside Antonitis. Antonitis said in an interview with VG247, he was looking for a way into games, and we offered him full collaboration that just organically grew. First, we co-wrote the story and stuff, and then he just started to look at the game like he would at a movie. It actually really amazes me how well the developers were able to achieve this. It really feels as if they took a movie script, adapted it into a video game, and said, let's do this. That about does it for the development history, so let's jump into our story premise. Our story begins as the slaver ship is making its way across a ruined New York City. Monkey wakes up inside of a capsule and sees Tripitaka escaping. She just goes by the name Trip, so we'll refer to her as Trip from here on out. Monkey manages to escape his pod by bashing it open once it falls to the ground. Now that we have control of Monkey, we get to test out the controls and make our way to the first enemy encounter. Monkey stumbles across Trip inside of an escape pod and starts banging the door trying to get her to open it up, but a scared Trip refuses to let him in. Monkey makes his way around the ship in search of another escape pod, but is unsuccessful. We wake up to find out that Trip has put a slaver headband on Monkey, a device used to enslave the wearer to obey the commands of the person who it controls. Trip tells us she wants Monkey to take her back to her home village and she will remove the device there.
It's the headband.
What?
The slave headband. The one I fit on you.
You put this on me.
Let me explain.
Get this thing off, or I'm gonna rip your head off.
No.
No? You think I'm screwing with you?
Command, stop!
Monkey, not happy with the decision, agrees to it with no other choice.
Like I don't have a choice.
Neither of us do. I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's go.
Trip also says if Monkey dies, she dies, so we must keep her safe at all cost. With introductions out of the way, we once again have control over Monkey and are able to explore the mech-ridden, vegetative wasteland that was once New York City. As we look for Monkey's ride that crashed alongside the slaver ship, let's discover what happened to humanity and see where the story takes us, shall we? Gameplay in Enslaved is really straightforward. It takes many elements from God of War and Uncharted, such as combat and platforming, combines them together. Monkey has two basic attacks. One is a really quick, less powerful attack, and the other is a heavy but slow, but much more powerful attack. You will also be able to block enemy attacks by using a shield or evading attacks by using roll. Monkey can charge his staff by holding down the basic attack button to stun enemies or break their shields. I do sometimes feel that the charge attack can be more of a nuisance than it's worth using, but this is few and far between. When a bunch of mechs are in a group with a lot of shields and blocks, it can get annoying to charge, and more often than not results in unnecessary damage. I'm willing to admit I just suck and this isn't a problem, but let me know if this is something you've encountered in large groups of enemies down below in the comment section. Upon further analysis, I also realized the mechs started to adapt to my playstyle, meaning they remembered the moves I used, so I had to constantly be changing up the way that I did things in order to get past them. The further I continued to use combat, it became clear very quickly you can't just spam buttons or repeat the same moves over and over. It had me dodging, it had me blocking, and utilizing everything in my arsenal, and I freaking loved it. Games need to do more of this, straight up. Absolutely, we need more games. Push the player out of their comfort zone and get them to play a very specific way by changing things up. Monkey will also be able to learn new combat moves used against enemies. In order to do so, you'll need to collect orange tech orbs and let Trip use them to upgrade your weapons. I played this on normal difficulty for the sake of reviewing it, but I'd imagine those looking forward to playing on hard are going to be utilizing these tools a hell of a lot more than I did. Along the way, Monkey's staff will be able to use Fire Blast that can damage enemies and knock down pillars and signs. Monkey also has Stun Blast that will be able to stun enemies with charged attacks. It can be extremely useful to stun enemies in a large crowd. You have pretty limited ammo to start with, but these can be upgraded thanks to Trip. Monkey will be able to hide in and out of cover as he shoots projectiles. There are times you can also rip out parts of a turret or a gun off of a mech and use them against enemies. These sections can actually be really fun as you'll need to use stealth, distractions, and cover to make your way over these enemies or past these enemies that can annihilate you really quickly. The Monkey's shield will guard against bullets for a brief moment, but it blows through your shield rather quickly, so you won't get much cover just running straight forward. You'll also have to use Blast from Monkey's staff to kill or stun enemies far away. I think it's time though we talk about Trip and how she plays into this game. Enslaved really is one giant escort mission. The entire game you will need to make sure you're protecting Trip and finding ways for her to get across gaps in enemies. I know what you're thinking. Oh gosh, not a video game escort mission. The whole game? Nah, I'll pass. There's no way I'm playing a game like that. Relax though. This might be one of the few games that does this right and does it very well. I forgot to mention something during the development history of Enslaved. It was also inspired by the PlayStation 2 game Ico, hence the two characters working together to achieve a common goal. Much of the game was constructed to have Monkey and Trip work together to build the relationship between the two characters. Trip can also use her decoy ability to distract enemies, allowing Monkey to get by unharmed. However, it does have a cooldown, and Trip will let you know when it's available for use again. These moments are fun and probably my favorite part of the game. Boss fights are also really fun and use unique strategies to take them down. For instance, the first boss you encounter is a giant mech with chains. In order to defeat it, you'll have to piss him off and make him charge into a statue towards you, then roll out of the way, having it run into the statue. Do this 3 times and victory is yours. Monkey and Trip will have to work together to keep each other safe. Trip will also keep track of enemy data. By doing so, this makes enemies easier to take down after you've recorded data on any enemy and know its weakness. You'll be able to exploit it. This will present itself as a special takedown which will pop up as a button prompt on the screen. By using Trip's menus, you can upgrade your staff, combat, skills, shield, and health all along the way. On a side note, it becomes pretty evident the gameplay ties heavily into the game's themes of working together to overcome impossible odds, hence why I said earlier everything about this game is constructed to foreshadow the theming and the ending. The game isn't without its faults though. Each object you can jump on or climb has a glint to it. I find this borderline insulting. It's almost like the developers felt the player couldn't figure out where to go without being told. On the flip side, they've got so many things that look like you could jump on them, but don't actually let you jump on them. So it was kind of this situation they created where they had to fix one problem with another. Uncharted handled this very well. While it's extremely clear the path you're supposed to follow, it doesn't highlight the path Nate is supposed to walk or climb, letting you figure it out and only giving you hints if you want to. To add insult to injury, Trip will oftentimes blurt out where you need to go, what you need to find, or if you need to climb up to this tower, or on top of this windmill, or you'll need to jump up there to disable this turret to get by. It can be extremely frustrating. Again, these were instances where Uncharted made the path very clear and distinctly made it clear to you when you played what you could and couldn't jump on. I feel part of this was done to add dialogue between Trip and Monkey and this dynamic of characters needing to work together, but I still found it super annoying. Stop telling me what to do and how to beat a game. I can figure it out myself. There was one section where you had to lift Trip up and let her climb up another way. You can clearly see the path glowing. Monkey needs to climb up to follow her. But not only does she tell you which way to go, by verbally speaking, she points in that direction. Monkey is athletic and clearly has been climbing things and surviving long before Trip ever came along, so why does she constantly need to tell Monkey where to go and what to do? I get her device lets her see things, but Monkey knows how to figure his way around. It just was so immersion breaking. Despite the long tangent, the gameplay is smooth, responsive, and easy to pick up on, and honestly, it's not even that big of a turning off point despite a long spiel I just gave you guys about it. I've become more agitated with these things in recent years as more and more modern games tend to hold the player's hand so much, I just get tired of seeing it. I just wish Enslaved didn't make it so easy to play the platforming parts, and I realize this is going to be my opinion, and there is an audience out there who will enjoy the hand-holding nature that this game offers up, but as someone who thinks modern games do it too much, it's just something I noticed very heavily, especially this playthrough. From this point forward, we are going to be diving headfirst into spoiler territory as we analyze the themes and take a look at the rest of the plot. If you haven't played this game yet and have a desire to, we'll catch back up in the graphics and soundtrack section of this retrospective. We'll see you there. 3, 2, 1. Alright, those of you who are still with me, let's dive headfirst into spoilers. Once Monkey and Trip make their way back to Trip's village, they discover mechs have invaded and there is no trace of the villagers. Trip frantically looks for her father or any other survivors of her village as Monkey rushes to stop her. After we regain control of both Monkey and Trip, they once again work together to head to the safe house her father would be at. Upon entering, they find him dead. Trip swears she is going to hunt down who is responsible for this and breaks her promise to Monkey about taking off the band. I'll discuss more on this in the character section, but I really want to talk about the shift in personalities here, and it should be quite fun to dive into. Trip tells Monkey there was a friend of her dad's named Pigsy, and that they should seek him out. Pigsy tells us he has a device that will let us fly to where this machine called the Leviathan is that will help us be able to defeat the slavers, get an advantage ahead of them, and be able to help us easily take out more mechs. After what seems like forever hunting down crap for Pigsy's flying machine, we are finally able to make our way to the Hoover Dam, still Leviathan, a giant war machine equipped with a multitude of weapons for handling mechs. Monkey, Pigsy, and Trip all make their way to the pyramid where the slavers are after fighting off giant scorpions, mechs, and Monkey obliterating one of the scorpions by himself. More appear and Pigsy decides to make the decision to sacrifice himself to give Monkey and Trip a chance to get inside the pyramid. Once inside, Trip and Monkey are finally shown what pyramid is and what they are doing to all of the humans who are captured by the slavers. Everyone is hooked up to the consciousness of Pyramid, the last surviving person of the world before the war, and through him are able to live lives much like we do today. Monkey puts on the mask to see what he sees, and this world he's created for others, comments it's beautiful before Trip pulls the plug, shutting down the simulation.
Did I do the right thing?
The ending of Enslaved Odyssey to the West is both unnerving and thought-provoking. The inhabitants inside this machine are all linked to a man known as Pyramid. These people are in a simulation, as he aptly tells us. They know no difference, yet they live their lives in the simulation away from suffering, pain, and live a life very reminiscent of our own.
Why are you attacking me?
Who are you?
On one hand, Pyramid seeks to do what is right to give people a happy life despite a wasteland overrun by machines, a sense of hope in a broken world where humans would live miserable lives in a machine-ridden world. There are a few themes we can take away from Enslaved. First, humans are just another product of nature. As much as we like to think we have an impact on life, we don't. We're just another cog in the cycle of life, ever turning. If we cease to exist, the world will continue without us. We are just another creature nature has cultivated. Another theme that is quite prevalent is technological advancements and how far we're willing to go. We know the mechs were created by humans, but humans lost control of these weapons created for war, and because of this, they now suffer at the hands of those very same machines. Technological advancements are great, but how long until we take it too far? How far can we push it until we lose control? AI is a scary thing, and in a world where self-learning and AI algorithms all exist, one has to ask the question, have we gone too far? Elon Musk says we have, and hearing him talk about AI and how we won't be able to control it, and how we've gone past the part where we can't go back, and his option is joining it, is absolutely terrifying to think about. At some point, I do think we as a species need to stop and think how far is too far, and how far can we go until we're not the ones in control anymore. The ending to Enslaved Odyssey to the West also sends a strong message about living in a fake reality and not accepting the world for the way it truly is. Choosing to ignore the ways of the world and nature in a quest for your own happiness. In a time where Facebook has rebranded to Meta and we are hearing talks of virtual reality or a metaverse becoming a thing, it sends a clear message about living in a fake world to escape the harsh facts of reality. These people inside the simulation of Pyramid are living in a fake world. There is a moral argument to be had about letting someone live in a lie. Do we have an obligation to wake someone up with the truth? I think cults play heavily into this. You're in a perceived utopia created by someone else, indoctrinated by how they view the world. A dictator or a communist government can also be seen in the same light. It's a perfect allegory for being blinded by others who promise a fake reality and indoctrinate you into their beliefs. Eventually, you need to wake up to the reality and realize the world isn't always a happy place, nor a place you can make better all the time. Terrible things happen, whether it's caused by nature, humans, or unforeseen circumstances, and how we choose to deal with these makes us stronger or weaker. Enslave also dropped at the rise of social media, so I think it's worth analyzing the connections there and what it says about society. Social media has allowed us to create a fake online persona and make life seem far more glamorous than what they actually are. Think of your favorite content creator or influencer and how we glamorize their life, celebrities even. Social media lets us follow every asset of their lives, but we only are seeing what they want us to see. We live in their simulation. Social media has given us a chance to be a part of something we connect to. Whether it be politics or something fictional we feel really connected with, we are able to block and silence those whose opinions we don't like with the simple click of a block button. We are living in a sort of simulation, a perceived reality we've constructed around ourselves, blocking out the truth and ideals we don't like. In a sense, we are very much able to block out the harsh truths of reality and live in an echo chamber we create. But at some point, we're going to have to wake up and realize the world is not as the way we see it, and we have to face the reality. Accept people who have different beliefs and opinions that don't align with our own. We cannot control everyone and witness life through their eyes or the perception of a perfect world. It's always interesting to take a look back at past games, movies, and books to see how they've interpreted and predicted what would happen in the future. Paranoia Agent is another great example of an early look at how the internet would affect society. Great anime, by the way. Highly recommend watching it if you haven't checked it out. Remember how I said Odyssey to the West gameplay is tied into the themes? Trip and Monkey are both put into unfortunate situations where they are forced to work together. It's evident they clearly come from different walks of life. Monkey is more nihilistic and self-centered, lived a life of solitude and survival, only ever having to look out for himself. Trip, on the other hand, has lived in a community of friends and family, learned to value the relationships one can forge with another. She has found purpose and meaning in life and learned to find the beauty in it.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. They should be dead.
Makes perfect sense. The sunlight feeds the plants oxygenate the water, the small fish eat the algae, the big fish eat the small fish. It's a closed ecosystem, just like my home.
It's these motivations she's able to escape the slaver ship, puts the headband on Monkey's head as she realizes she cannot get home without help. Since Trip is able to hack the slaver band and highlight enemies' weaknesses for Monkey, highlighting points of interest, this allows Monkey to use abilities more efficiently. It's by Trip and Monkey working together they are able to take down mechs most people couldn't.
That was incredible! Has anyone ever killed one of these before?
Not that I know of.
Oh, you did it!
Yeah. The truth is, we did it.
When I really think about it in a lot of ways, removing these people from the simulation, it validates it by all the theming. We just played a game where two people had to work together against impossible odds, that cooperation letting them achieve these feats. Humans can work together to overcome the treacherous wasteland left behind. This was what I meant when I said the game felt like it was structured inside the script of a movie. Almost every scene was used in such a way to highlight themes of how fragile life is, but how working together to create a better tomorrow is essential for survival. Gameplay is at its best when the developers have used it in terms of storytelling, and using Trip and Monkey working together, Enslaved Odyssey to the West does just that. Monkey and Trip are what really make this story work. The relationship they build over the course of the game really connects you to these two characters. One thing I noticed was how much their characters fall in line with Belle and the Beast. I'm unsure if this was intentional, as the developers, to my knowledge, have not talked about it, but once I saw it, it was hard to unsee. Take Monkey. He's nihilistic in his approach to the world. Survival and looking out for himself is all he knows. Monkey's parents died at a young age, so he had to fend for himself and learn much about the harsh realities of the world alone. It becomes clear Monkey doesn't like to rely on others for help much. The Beast, much like Monkey, had a cold demeanor, is brash and very rude in his approach. While Trip, on the other hand, represents Belle a lot. She's calm, kind, has relied on others to help her out, and really cherished the relationships that she's built with her community. While she lacks the strength that Monkey has, her mind and knowledge of tech really helps her out. What really cemented this connection I drew between these two was when Trip learns her village was destroyed and she runs off to find her father. In the same love and adoration Belle had for her father, and left the castle to go find him. Monkey, on the other hand, suddenly finds himself caring for Trip. An argument could be made he only cared because of the headband, but how much he actually worried about her through that whole section says otherwise. Though in the end it is Trip that releases her hold on Monkey by deactivating the slaver headband and tells him he is free to go. But it's Monkey who decides he is going to stick this journey out and help Trip see it to the end.
I know it was wrong. I have no more right to enslave you than anyone does.
What have you done?
There's nothing controlling you anymore.
So I can just leave.
If that's what you want.
Turn it back on.
But
You heard what I just said. Turn it back on.
Well, after all, you've probably expected me to have some profound revelation of Pigsy and make a connection like that with him, but no. While the banter and dialogue can be funny between the three characters and there are moments of humor present, I just found Pigsy to be extra baggage that made a sacrifice at the ending less impactful. Pigsy just kind of exists, and that's all I can say about him.
Wow. This is intimate.
Yeah. Well, at least I get to be on the inside this time.
Monkey, would you mind shifting your left arm slightly?
I don't really see how I can.
It's just your hand is right on my penis.
If you skipped out on the spoiler section, welcome back.
Slavers.
Let's talk about those graphics and soundtrack, shall we? Graphic-wise, I still think this game looks really beautiful. The character models look good despite their fingers looking a bit odd, but that was kind of a thing of the time. Ninja Theory is known for using still images and videos of real people in their games. Hellblade's Senua Sacrifice has it too. So it doesn't really bug me, but it does stand out, especially for this game that was made. The scenery is outright breathtaking, and it's just beautiful to look at. The team was inspired to try something different with the design of the post-apocalyptic world. Rather than a desolate wasteland with everything dying, they wanted something vibrant and colorful, something whisking you away into another world. They actually talked quite heavily about being inspired by Miyazaki films of all things in his design, and a documentary of what Earth would look like had humans actually been wiped out of the planet. What they realized was that true nature would start to overtake any man-made structure, and one only needs to look at real world to see it. Chernobyl, the Incan cities buried in years of vegetation, it's absolutely beautiful to this day, and graphic-wise, the game still holds up really well. The soundtrack is very ambient and fits the mood, and has some tracks used to elicit a sad response out of the player at appropriate times. It incorporates synth sound and gives you this almost metallic sound, which lends its ear very nicely to the machine sound and machines dominating the world. While it's not a soundtrack I'd replay or listen to, I appreciate the design that went into making the game feel alive. I also really appreciate the effort that went into the sound design. It's punchy and very metallic, and it just sounds like it belongs so heavily into the game. You can tell the developers really focused quite a bit to make sure that the sound of the weapons and the clinking of metal worked in this world they were trying to create. Well, we've got one last thing to cover, and that is the DLC. PIGSY came with his own DLC, and I believe this was on sale for about $10 when the game came out, but if you buy the Steam version, it comes with it for free. And I'll be honest, PIGSY'S DLC is a bit of a mess. It's pretty bare bones, but once you and his robot companion are looking for parts around the area, some things happen and PIGSY finds himself in a bit of trouble. I think where PIGSY'S DLC shines is in its gameplay, but it's also marred with problems as well. Since Piggy lacks any combat skills that Monkey has, he has to rely more heavily on stealth. His hook shot will also play a crucial role into how he gets around. There is quite a bit of strategy in this setup. PIGSY uses traps to lure the enemies out and stun them. Each of these are obtained throughout the progression of the DLC. He has an EMP he can use to distract enemies. This is a great way to get turrets and ranged enemies to fire at your decoy while you pick them off with your rifle. You'll also be able to stun enemies by electrifying them, a great way to stun a bunch of enemies all at once. Say you might need to use a decoy to lure the group of enemies towards a certain spot, and then you can use your stun ability to immobilize them and pick them off one by one while they are stunned. It's actually kind of fun to discover how to solve these as the DLC progresses. It's very puzzle-like in its approach, something I oftentimes just feel is very missing in a lot of modern games. A lot of modern games don't really try to go for the stealth approach anymore, or they do, and they don't know how to do it because they just have you rely more on firing a gun and action sequences to get by. And as someone who grew up playing Metal Gear, considers that to be one of my favorite video game franchises, I do miss it quite a bit. However, these moments can become quite chaotic, especially towards the end of the game when you've got loads of enemies coming at you all at once. Overall, it has its moments of fun. Considering it came free with the Steam version, I'd say it was worth playing, but I can't imagine paying for it. I do think the DLC does overstay its welcome for sure, and the story is pretty lackluster. I suppose the DLC does fit into the themes of the game by everyone needing a companion or family or a friend to help them through life, but I found its overall general story pretty boring, and it just doesn't add anything to the game. Overall, I still find this game fun to play 12 years later, and it still holds up surprisingly well, and offers a great time for a long afternoon or a weekend of fun. Loaded with moral questions to keep you thinking for days, Enslaved Odyssey to the West is a game I can recommend as it's fairly cheap to pick up on both PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 and goes on sale on Steam quite a bit, so it's worth giving a shot. I hope you enjoyed this retrospective and had as much fun watching it as I had making it. Give it a like, share, and subscribe if you found it useful. I look forward to seeing you in our next retrospective. And until next time, stay safe out there. And most importantly, stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out.